Yeah, I'll
Yeah,
join
I
you.
think I
Give me
asked.
a second.
do it. Yeah, man. Sorry, I didn't get a chance to respond when you said about the players, the free to plays that are in top alliances on being incredibly active. To obviously be there. I think obviously I think generally that's true. It's just for my original point was just more about the duration of time that it takes for a free to play just to kind of get to a point where they actually feel right, like they're able to contribute in a confident and comfortable way. And right now we're only seeing the top end. Right, we're seeing the 0.1% or 0.01% of free to play at the moment for
Yo, boss,
where
real
they're at
quick,
and what they're
through all
getting
your
to.
numbers, where do you think? And I'm sorry to interrupt, but to your topic and on your video, so how long should it take, bro, in your opinion, for a player to go ahead and reach T5, so they can somewhat have like a worthy chance of actually fighting where the game is currently?
Well, no,
Well,
I mean that's what I was saying earlier. And I said that in my video too. I think it should be something around 6 or 9 months where you should be able to unlock. I personally I think you should be able to unlock all your T5 by that time because it's still going to take you a significant amount of time just to train. Right, as a free to play, you're never going to be able to train as much as someone who spends, and then you also have to think about all the other areas that are gatekept from you and that you have to invest in as well. And some of those, come easier with time as your account levels up. So, even if you're able to unlock all your T5 in a 6 to 9 month period, you still have to do a lot more beyond that to get your character or account in more of a viable place. On top of, once you hit T5, you still have to train enough to field up to 5 marches. So, it's just if you really think
Yeah, I
about
see it
everything,
as
if you think about everything that goes into it, right? And I'm talking about fighting on the front lines, right? As like like in the vanguard force. That's what we're talking about. Is like being able to get to that point. But I've always had that stance. I've always had that view ever since I played Rock. It just as a free to play because I was a free to play in Rock for 2 years. I spent $20. That's all I've ever spent in Rock, and I played for however much longer, 2 years after that. But yeah, just like I said, I don't. It's funny because when I played Rock, I don't even know if anyone's ever done that. I don't know if anyone's ever looked at historical milestones or data on does it take free to play players on average to hit. You hear it from people, but like, where's the stats,
well.
right? Like, where's the actual hard
Hold on, real
evidence and
quick.
data
So
that shows it
let
like
me just finish.
consistently for like average free to play that are in high alliances, and then free to play that are in like low spending or no spending alliances. And I just don't think anyone's ever really collected that data. And that's the kind of stuff that I'm very interested in because I just think it allows us to tell more of it. I think it gives us a clearer picture, and it also allows us to tell more of an appropriate and accurate story on what it's like as a free to play
No, that's
coming
cool,
in
bro.
to a game. So
Now, I would say this, and I don't want to interrupt you in any way, but comparing it to the top 25 most powerful video, which is all stat and numbers, I viewed it. These are all lords within like, I think 25 was like 100 and already above 60, 70. To once you got past 18, 15, these are all 200 plus players as far as like extreme T5 power. So the way the game, not only I should, my opinion, I enjoy the game a lot, but you could see it right away. A T4 is just in every way unsuperior and no match to a T5. So not only do they have to cut down the time for you to actually achieve this, because many people are still just catching up, and it's a too far of an imbalance. But also the way you fight. If you're coming together with other T4 top players and you combat a T5, maybe the exchange should change as well as far as the timer you heal up from a million example of a T5, they're coming right out the next day. A million T4, you're sitting down for a couple of days. So it's like it's no fair in many ways. So yeah, I think it's a cool topic, and especially if the game could apply it now that everybody's awaiting this whole global migration. They should imply a big change like that. That way, when players do choose to come together in teams, they'd also have a worthy chance to combat their enemies as well. But go ahead, bro. I just wanted to pitch in that topic because I heard it. As I stepped in the chat.
Stepped in the doo-doo. Yeah. Yeah, the real crime is that Lexi doesn't have her cam on. That's the real crime. So no, she's all silent now. She's
That's the thing though about games like this, like obviously pay to win players are gonna have the advantage. Like there's no you're always gonna have your players that are insane. Like Toxic, Mephisto, Jason, like people that just have that extra abundance of cash can just do things like that.
yeah.
Like you're never gonna not have that in this type of game. It is quite literally pay to win. And that's where that phrase comes from.
Yeah, man, those IAPs, they're deadly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's always going to. To your point, it's always going to be there. It's never something that you're probably never. I mean, it's funny because people have talked about, why couldn't they just come out and make a free to play game? Just a game that's entirely free to play and there's no spending in it. And then it's funny because then the opposite argument to that is, how long would a game like that actually last, right? Because as a developer, you have to financially support it, right? You have to make money from it in some way, shape, or form in order to pay server costs and any other overhead that you have just to actually keep the game running. And so then the argument, and so then people would say, okay, well, why don't they just run ads? And again, I don't know how much a game could make from running ads, especially if there's millions of downloads and however many people are consistently playing. But I would soft guess that ads may not necessarily be enough to support a hugely successful game to pay for all that overhead alone with just that. And so then if that's the case, then you start getting to kind of arriving to the same conclusion, which is, I would argue for a reason on why they have IAPs in the first place and they allow for you to make purchases. It's just, I think the way that you balance it, and it's funny because, people have mentioned this to me over. They're like, "Bosh, you should just start a GoFundMe for your own Kingdom Builder game." And it's funny because I've never even entertained the idea, but maybe one day. But like if I think the easy solution really is you have to have more events. You have to have more events. You have to have more things to do in the game where you can invest your time, and that time reaps the rewards. It allows for you to invest more time, you get more progression, more development out of your character. And so having more events, more diverse rewards that you get from those, I think is probably one of the best ways to do it. And then you potentially lower down the time that it takes. I mean, I think if you're going to do it in kind of step by steps, I think the first thing you do is just make sure you have more events that are added into the game, and to a point where there's enough tasks where if I log in for my first time in a day, I can spend 16 hours if I wanted to, doing tasks, doing activities, doing actions, and getting rewards from those throughout that period. And maybe
that'd be awesome.
And it's like, and again, I don't know what that is. Like in the business world, we call those we call them TIMS, T-I-M, time in motion studies. So for those of you that are business savvy, you probably have heard that term before. And basically what it is it's where you look at how long it takes from the start of something. Like you start a clock, and it's how long does it take for you to go through these steps, right, to produce a result, or to get from A to Z, in simple terms. And so, like, that's actually something I'd love to do. Like, I'd love to look at the babas. Oh, the pretty doggies. But so like that's something that I would actually love to like get some people to do that as kind of like a test group. And it's actually a video idea I have, but I'd love to like ask a bunch of people and just say like, look, time out, like just time out from when you first log in, until you complete everything that you can actually do in that day. So like all the events that are currently going on in that day, any of your daily tasks, like I just want you to time it out. Like from when you first log in, if you have like 2 or 3 hours, and just let me know how long are you playing until you've done everything that you possibly can do in that day. And then have someone who's like a free to play, maybe someone who's like a low spend, mid spend, like try to get a variety of people as well. But basically you have to have the time carved out. And I think it'd be interesting to see how much time are you actually able to do on a daily basis, right? And then maybe have those people do it every day for a week or every day for a month. Like just keep track of it. And then we look at what that data looks like, on an average day. How did it look for you across that week? Like, were you able to put 2 hours in on one day, but then on another day you could do 4 hours, maybe because it was a weekend? Was there maybe additional events going on? Like, I think that's also really important to see. And I don't know if that's stuff that they study. I don't know if that's the kind of data that they look at on the back end. But I just think there's a lot that goes into a kingdom builder. And I think there's also a lot that goes into balancing out between a free-to-play and those that can spend. And I think there's healthy ways to do it, and then I think there's unhealthy ways to do it when it comes to balancing. But those are just my general thoughts on like how I would look at it and attack it from, to make a game more balanced on kind of a free-to-play to pay-to-win standpoint.
Listen, Bentley, you gotta tell Boss Nasty. Say, we like your videos. We like your videos.
Hey, that's the Bubba's. Oh, the big yawns.
Oh my gosh, I want that puppy.
No, he's mine.
No, he's mine.
I have 2 of them.
Don't you already have like 10 dogs, Lexi?
I have 12, but one more won't make a difference.
Yeah, you got lucky 13.
Yeah.
Exactly.
There you go. Lay down.
So yeah, Jake, send your puppy my way. It's mine.
No.
Yeah.
That is my child. That is my child, quite literally.
No, I don't give a fuck. It's mine now.
Yeah, see, your situation.
NASTi, go back to your thing. In Rise of Kingdoms, I had the dailies down to if you did certain things, and that's what I had my alliance do. When you logged in, you had all the dailies done within like 10, 15 minutes. Then it was just whatever challenges were, outside the dailies. I would have to go back and look.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's and then it all goes down to is, training, retraining, your members on how to effectively conduct their time when they're online.
Yeah.
Now it's hard for me because according to my storybook from last season, I was 518 minutes a day.
There you go. So you're at.
You gotta pump those numbers up, man. Those are rookie numbers.
This guy. Yeah. But I'm sure that time, which is like whatever that, I think it comes out to like less than 9 hours a day. Like you're still not, like that. Those aren't all development minutes, right? Those aren't all like account progression minutes. I would imagine it's probably. I would argue that's probably a lot of that is fighting, or just being online. Maybe to chat and to socialize, and. So it's just, I mean, like I said, but yeah, I mean, to your point, I mean, I think obviously those are smart things to do. I think every alliance, every lead should have a management team that's in place, or just have an action plan in place where you are, updating your alliance members. That can be like a weekly mail when the new events come out for the week, and you're just giving like, hey, here's a brief overview and outline of every event. Here's like a quick tip sentence or a couple little tip lines on like what you should be doing to min-max for that event. And yeah, making sure, and then friendly reminders, when those events, like the day maybe that event starts. And yeah, I think those are great things to do. I mean, I honestly, I wish more alliances did stuff like that. Where it's looking at it more from like an educational standpoint and or more of a friendly reminder approach on, hey, this is this thing we want you to do. Is we want you to be as informed as you can, so you can do the best job that you can, right, and get the most out of your login time, because how many alliances I'm sure that some of us have been in. I remember when I started in my kingdom builders early on, even before Rock, where I'd join an alliance and all the lead said is move here, donate to tech, thank you, oh come fight, and it's just it's all very kind of rudimentary, very basic in what they did. And obviously that's, every lead to their own, right? Everyone's going to come in with their own level of knowledge and experience, and those that are able to improve and develop, and those that aren't. But yeah, I mean, I wish there was a lot more of that, and a part of the content I like to produce, I like to talk about that stuff. It's funny because when I started playing Rock, and I would look at a lot of the big YouTubers at the time, which, this is back when Roni was still playing, when Echo was still doing content, when Gecko, my homeboy Gecko, when he was still doing content, Chiz, Omni, a lot of these guys, Andrew Grothian, etc. I would look through their video content, and I would look at what they're producing. And what I noticed is that a lot of the content they put out, and they still do, right, to this point, is they put out a lot of like progression style content, which I basically would define as, how can I improve my account, right? How can I become war ready, which is still individualistic, right? It pertains to my account, not really to others. They would maybe talk about events, cover some wars here and there. But for the most part, and we talk about matching, matchups, pairings, who should I have here, who should I level first, etc., investment. But it really wasn't about what I considered to be like a much more important part of the game, which is like, what am I actually doing on a day-to-day as a player, right? Like, what's going on in my alliance? What's going on in my kingdom? Why are certain decisions being made? Why, that I don't understand? Why is MGE or SLE being ran the way it is, right? Why are there only 2 alliances that are allowed in the final zone? How did our diplomacy affect our position going into a KVK? Like, all these amazing areas of the game that just, it almost felt to me like it was taboo, which is kind of a passive aggressive way of putting it. And I don't mean to say that in a negative way at all, but it very much felt like there was only this small little pool of things that were being discussed in the broader community, and it wasn't covering what I felt was like the most important things to really discuss. That doesn't mean that these other things are not important, but to me, it was just always interesting how people would not like create, and even now, creators don't really talk about like what is just like the day-to-day impact for an average player who's playing. Right? Because there's so much more. Like, think about when you're in the game and you're just socializing, and think about things that can happen in your alliance that cause you to react a certain way, whether or not you're going to stay with that alliance or you're going to leave, whether you stay in that kingdom or you're going to leave. And these are things that have absolutely nothing to do with you progressing your account. They have to deal more with how your alliance is being managed, the people that are there, their soft skills, how they speak to one another. And these, to me, are just, like, I love talking about these things. I mean, the other things are important, too. I just have always felt that this other big pool, this void, right, of things that aren't really talked about in a very big way are areas that I very much enjoy talking about, because I think they're equally, if not more important.
It's because those are really the realm of leadership, right? Those are the concerns that your R4s and your R5s specifically are going to have a lot of time invested in and energy and effort put into, whereas your average player is going to look at it like, no, I actually don't want to know about that stuff, because that's making the game less like a game and more like work, which is kind of the main divider between the people who want to be leadership and don't, right? So, and then I think the content creators are looking at it's just a business decision on, hey, if I make videos that target the larger portion of the player pool, they're going to get more views, clicks, and so forth. It's going to make more revenue. So that makes sense to me that way.
Oh yeah, no, 100%. And I'm not saying that I don't understand why they don't do it, which I completely understand why they do, and I think you articulated that really well. It's just, I think to the average player, like and a good example is, the video I put out 2 days ago where I covered the like no free to play person had been there, or when I talked about like different leadership approaches. Like I am somewhat shocked at times on how much interest some of those videos get, and I think it speaks to this broader point of that, a lot of these areas affect the average player. A majority of these really do, right? They have this ability. They have this, and I shouldn't say ability, but they are able to affect up to everyone that plays the game. But yeah, I mean, I very much understand the idea of the average player is probably going to be more interested in just knowing what the meta pairings are, right? Versus reasons to stay in an alliance or leave. I very much like to believe that regardless of what they may like to watch more or less, that there is still an equal level of importance, if not more, on certain subjects. And those kinds of outlier subjects are ones that aren't really talked about a lot, but still have this ability, still have this, I want to say opportunity again, but this way of being able to affect everyone that plays the game are just things I really like to touch on, kind of a little more off the beaten path from what I just don't usually see creators touch on that much. But, that's me. So.
All right, I got to go. I got to push.